Hello, everybody. It's me, Bigfoot, Michigan Rob. It's Saturday, 7th of September. I could not wait to get this story out to you guys. I think it's one of my best. It's one of the best emails I've come across. You guys are going to enjoy this. Listen to the whole story because it is a little bit longer than usual, but I guarantee you will love it. If not subscribed already, please subscribe to Bigfoot, Michigan Rob on YouTube. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. And thank you for everybody who's bought my book, Bigfoot Michigan Rob Presents True Cryptid Encounters, Book 1. And I tell you what, this story is going to make Book 2. I was raised by my grandfather in the late 1960s through the end of the 1970s. I was 15 years old when my mother and father were killed in an automobile accident. My world was turned upside down. As a 15-year-old, now having to move in with my grandpa, who lived alone, as his wife, my grandmother, passed away much too early in life. This was just very traumatic for me. The situation was made even more difficult as I never really saw my grandfather growing up as a child. He lived in what today you would call Mineral Wells, West Virginia. I had lived in St. Louis, Missouri, and this was a lifestyle that I was unfamiliar out in West Virginia. It almost seemed like I was living with a stranger in a very crude and abysmal land. My new home sat on about 50 acres in the woods. No neighbors, no kids in which to play with. The school was several miles away, from which I never graduated. As Grandpa was an alcoholic, it never got me to school on time, or to school at all for that matter. I often wondered how my grandpa even had money to buy anything. The one time he provided me clothing, the clothes were used and did not even fit my body. I was going through growth spurts, and frankly, I was just too embarrassed to go to school. The majority of what I ate, Grandpa hunted. The thing he did teach me was how to hunt and how to track. He told me, "Jake, I don't have much, but you will learn how to live off of the land." The home we lived in was falling apart. By today's standards, you could deem it dilapidated. The other thing Grandpa taught me was that of carpentry and how to fix things. Kind of like a modern-day handyman. The home was huge and very haunting looking. It reminded me of a home that a witch or sorcerer would live in from the early childhood stories that my parents read to me at my bedtime. My favorite story was that of Hansel and Gretel. I joked to myself that I lived in the infamous house that the wicked witch resided in and baked small children in her oven. So, Rob, my early youth was a nightmare. The one thing that always bothered me about this home was the fact that despite the shoddy construction of this house, every door and window was secured with very heavy iron bars. I would bet that the money invested in the ironclad steel was worth more money than the entire dwelling itself. Why the bars? I always thought. It was although my grandfather was trying to keep someone or something out. Another peculiar and disturbing occurrence. Almost weekly, when my grandfather was not home, a very tall man would walk across the property. He would stop in front of the house and stare. It was like he was looking right through the walls of the house directly at me. The man had long black, unkempt hair. As I mentioned, he was rather tall and robustly built. He always was dirty and had a very unusual long gray coat. The coat went from the top of his shoulders down to the top of his ankles. The coat reminded me of the style worn by the Confederate soldiers of the Civil War. The only difference was long swatches of brownish leather strewn about the coat. The leather also appeared to have some sort of emblems or patches sewn into the fabric. This continued to happen for almost a year until finally, on my 16th birthday, I decided it was time to talk with my grandpa about all these things that troubled me. "Why the bars?" I asked my grandfather. He looked at me and said, "For protection." I replied back, "Protection from what or who? Are you talking about the creepy man in the long gray coat that passes by the house every time you are gone?" My grandfather's face turned red. He became nervous and replied, "You have seen evil." I am taken aback by this change in Grandpa's temperament. He told me to wait where we were speaking in the kitchen as he quickly raced up the old creaking stairs to a room above, then found what he was looking for and returned to the kitchen. Grandpa came back with a rifle and a rather large silver box and placed the items on the kitchen table. He then clumsily went to a kitchen cabinet and fumbled for a few seconds before producing a set of keys. He took the key from the set and opened the large silver box. Inside the box, my grandfather pulled out old newspaper clippings and a handful of bullets. These bullets were not made of typical lead or copper. They were made of silver. The old clippings were faded. You could barely see the dates or the details. However, the scribes of interest were circled in pencil. The clippings spoke about werewolves and dog-like creatures killing Union soldiers during the Civil War. The article that chilled me to the bone the most was described as a very powerful man clad in a long Confederate coat embellished in leather. Then I feared for my life, as a picture stenciled in the clippings was that of the very same man that walks past the home during Grandpa's absence. Grandpa saw the look on my face and asked if this was the man I was seeing. I told him that it was. My grandfather's face dropped. He was in certain fear. He went on to tell me how this property had once been a battlefield during the war and many lives were lost. Not lost by the hands of man, but by the hands of beast. Grandfather went on to tell me that the man that I have been seeing is no man, but the leader of the killer wolf pack, a killer wolf-like man pack, he uttered again. He told me that this beast had not been on the property for over 20 years, until now, upon my arrival. You see, my grandfather told me he shot and killed this man over 20 years ago when it was in the form of a wolf. He went on to tell me he buried it in the back of the house at the tree line. Grandfather swore up and down that he used a silver bullet to kill the man-beast. Then he grabbed me by the hand, and off we went to the burial site. We reached the site. My grandfather fell to his knees and wept. The grave overturned, dirt strewn before us. The old coffin-like box was shattered, the same box that my grandfather told me he put this creature in. It appeared as though something or someone dug themselves out of the grave. From that day forward, Grandpa stopped drinking. He never left the home, sat on the front porch, rifle in hand, loaded with one silver bullet. 6 months went by, and the man beast never returned. Then one night, a week or so later, while I was asleep, I heard the sound of the rifle go off. I raced down to the porch and stood there, peering in at my grandfather, standing tall, rifle in hand, and he told me I shot the evil. The body of the creature was never found. A year later, my grandfather passed away. I continued to live off the land for about 8 years, as grandfather had taught me. I finally made it to the city and got a job as a laborer. There I was fortunate enough to find love and I got married. I will never forget Grandpa. I can say evil takes many shapes and forms. I can bear witness to that. Thanks, Rob. Jake. Creepy. Very creepy, you guys. This has some history to it. The Civil War. Wolf-like creatures killing people, killing soldiers. The gray coat. I mean, Jake, the young man, sees this coat, this man dressed in this long coat on the property, and then grandfather bringing down that silver box with the old clippings of the paper, and there, dated whenever this was, the picture of what Jake saw. Grandfather claiming to have shot and killed it 20-some years ago, burying it in the back, only to find the grave now empty, as his grandson now is seeing this apparent werewolf Dogman. I tell you what, that was pretty interesting, pretty creepy. I've heard things, though, you guys, in the Civil War about mysterious deaths upon soldiers. A lot of them have alluded to inhuman or humanoid type beasts or creatures. You can find it in the records if you go online. What do you think about that one? That poor guy, and he lived, what a life, eh? Parents die, moves in with grandfather, doesn't know the grandfather, shows him the way of the land, how to live off the land. And how about this guy, though, to finally get up after 10 years, not educated, get a job as a laborer, get married, and move on. Jake, I hope you're doing all right today. I appreciate that email. It was a fantastic story, and I wish you well. I wish you all well for this weekend. Please don't forget to subscribe to Bigfoot Michigan Rob on YouTube, of course. The super thanks is open should you care to donate to any of my videos. Thanks to you all for buying my book. Don't forget Tuesdays, 9 in the East, Beyond BMR. Thursdays is Brunch with Bigfoot Michigan Rob. I've been doing a little Halloween story series for the month of October. See if you like it. Check it out. I dropped one of those yesterday. Everyone have a great weekend. Thanks for tuning on in. Until next time, I am Bigfoot Michigan Rob. Have a fantastic day.